Fraternity of Girth, fogapparel.com. Look, if I'm going to be isolated in the house all day, doing stuff with my family and kids, cleaning the house, working out, all the stuff that I can do within the four walls, then you can be damn sure I'm going to be wearing Fraternity of Girth apparel. It's comfy. I like the designs. It's reliable, comfortable stuff that I know I'm going to wear. I'm going to rock a t-shirt. I'm going to rock a t-shirt that's got well-fitting sleeves that made me look jacked. So my 3-year-old thinks that I'm the strongest man in the whole world. Go to fogapparel.com. Use code HEAVYLIGHT. You're going to save 10% on your next purchase. There's a part of me that just, I hate being shoehorned into a subject. And the problem with like all content right now is that all content creators, what a fucking obnoxious title, by the way, are getting shoehorned into talking about this. Like you have to address the COVID-19, social distancing, quarantining. You have to address it all when you're on a podcast. I don't know what else to say other than like right now the Highland Games season is on hold. We're all quarantined. We're all holed up. We're taking the ultra safe method of making sure we flatten the curve for this virus. And I'm into it. I dig it. I don't like it. Look, I'm an extrovert, obviously. I like people to see me. I like to talk to people. I like to interact. But I've just got to shut that part of me off. And I've got to use this as a way to interact with you guys, the people that I like, and the people that I also despise. You're all out there. Each side of the coin is represented in the Highland Games. But yeah, this is the opportunity that I get to kind of reach out to vent and everything like that, because most of the time it's just taking care of business. It's, we have moved into this week. We're doing homeschool stuff with the kids. There's a lot of jobs to do around the house. There's a lot more cleaning when you got 5 people here all the time. The wife is still off work. And I've got that giant ball of stress waiting at the end of the week when she goes back to work. She does work in the healthcare sector. She's going to be on the front lines. So that is weighing on me like a ton right now. And that is the source of my stress and grumpiness overall, to be perfectly honest. Whatever there is. I'm trying to remain jovial and happy, but it's hard with, obviously, again, I'm not a person that's built for containment and routine, but I understand the importance of them. I usually need to mix things up a little bit within a disciplined routine to keep myself interested and to keep myself stimulated, but that's even less possible now. But I've got that giant brick wall of stress waiting at the end of this week that she's going back into the front lines. She's going to be putting herself in danger. And then, by extension, I suppose us, but it's hard to even get to that point of thinking about it. I just hate that she's out there, and I hope that things start getting better sooner, and I hope that she, her employer and coworkers and the community she's in do everything they can to stay safe and stay protected and stay uninfected. That is the idea. But, it's a high-risk situation, and I wish I could say I was, as my buddy Aaron would say, cool as a cucumber about it, but I'm not. I'm stressed out. I'm freaked about it. So, I'm trying to find ways to enjoy the time with her before she goes back to work and her little mini vacation that she's had here and make the best of it. And really, we put a lot of energy into schooling the kids, into, creating a homeschool environment, which, it stresses me out. Because I think like a lot of parents, I get, we have 2 kids in elementary school, one that's in preschool, and you kind of get spoiled on the time you get away from them because like, okay, now it's go time. I get my stuff done now. And like that just doesn't happen right now. But I did enjoy today that, we have kind of an understanding that we're not going to try to emulate exactly what's going on at school, especially for the elementary school age kids. We have a 5th grader and a 1st grader. We're not going to try to emulate that because it's a different deal. The best way I heard that put was a lot of those things. I think my neighbor, Christy, shout out to neighbor Christy, she put this on her Instagram story that, she used to be a teacher. She was a kindergarten teacher. And she said, don't try to emulate those things that we're doing at school because a lot of the things that we do at school are due to crowd control. when you have like a one-on-one or one-on-two situation, you can do a lot more in-depth stuff and kind of flex a little bit. And we've really enjoyed that today. I did music lessons with the kids, and I taught Hannah piano chords. I taught her a Taylor Swift song, and Evan wanted to play guitar with me. He took lessons for a good long while, and he stopped a while back, but he wanted to play guitar and work on some stuff. So we ran some scales, and then the preschooler got to make a mess and be a little savage, and run everywhere. So it was fun. It was stressful, but it's a fun kind of stress. It's good to be task oriented, and I think that helped a lot. And not just seeing it as like a job to educate the kids, because there is some, just, a day of work kind of stuff there. There's the rote stuff, like, the mathematics and the language arts stuff, but there's a chance to be expressive. There's a chance to be an artist. There's a chance to be original when you do those things. And there's a chance to express who you are to your kids and let them see a different side of you. You see a different side of them. So I encourage anybody, if they're not taking that super seriously, to maybe lean into it a little bit, to be more, don't try to be an educator, just be yourself and pass on your knowledge. We're going to be peppering in things while we have this couple weeks of no school. And we're going to be working on the garden in the backyard. I'm hoping to take one or two of the kids out to the lease to help build a hog trap. We're going to get more back into archery, even though it's not even close to archery season, just kind of, physical education. My son's continuing to lift. We're adding new exercise regimens. We might even work on like a little wrestling unit or something like that, because the kids love to wrestle after dinner, oddly enough. But seriously, it's got to be like their Nordic roots. Like they just want to feast and battle. But I'm going to like maybe introduce some wrestling and grappling skills, just some fun stuff for them. So I'm enjoying that. Nowhere on the table has there been throwing of any kind. The weather's been terrible. We've been out of town, so that has not been part of it. I would like, I have this kind of fantasy of my oldest son being a discus thrower, because he's like big and he's already strong for his age, and like he's got this huge wingspan. And I even got him like a 1 kilogram disc. We haven't really worked with it yet, but maybe as the weather gets better, that'll be something we go up to the junior high, throw out of the circle or something like that, and let him kind of feel that out. He's thrown a larger discus before. He's thrown like I think the high school discus and maybe the adult. And we've had it around the men's, but that's a different deal. That's heavy to a kid that age. And now that he's 11, a little stronger, I think that 1 kilogram is going to seem pretty light to him. So that could be fun. Maybe get Hannah into that too. But 1 kilogram is still pretty heavy when you're in first grade. But I don't know. She's a gamer. She'll pretty much go for anything. But for me personally, no, there's not been any throwing. It's not been on the table. I did lift today. First kind of real day back from Oklahoma, where we were kind of unpacked and settled. So Ashley and I both got some work in the home gym. Got a pretty decent home gym, so happy about that. I just front squat, I think I singles up to 315 or something. And I didn't do a lot else. I kind of did a little bit of accessory work, some hamstring work, a little bit of glute stuff, and then I hit the heavy bag a lot. I just strapped the gloves and the ankle guards, not the shin guards, just like the ankle guards, because I kind of have a slippery floor in the gym. They're kind of like, they work as like kind of grip for my feet. But, I just threw some basic combos. I had some ESPN Plus, that the Detail series where they break down fighters, and I had the Valentina Shevchenko one on, and god damn, she's so good. She's so good. And, obviously that inspires me. So I went out and hit the bag a little bit and just kept moving. It wasn't like a super intense workout. I was happy with the squats or whatever, but there's ramp back into it a little bit after all the weirdness. It seems like a lot of people are lifting, and I know not everybody has the home gym like I do, and I think it's good. It's easy to joke about all the body weight at home work, but I think it's actually really good. And I think if you're a thrower, I think it's actually really good that you're spending time on that. If you remember a few episodes back talking to the Pirate Captain, he talked about how much when he started in track and field as a shot putter at the University of Texas, how much body weight work there actually was. To be able to move your body through space effectively and explosively. So yeah, go for it out there, guys. Don't feel ashamed about it. It doesn't all have to be fucking hardcore, bands and chains, lifting with a barbell and plates, because that might not be available to you right now. So learn to move like an athlete. Like, it's amazing if you watch most, I hold that I think Highland Games is a different discipline than track and field, but there's obviously some overlap, and there's some things that will help you from the track and field world. And if you watch a lot of schools, it's just amazing the amount of plyometric and the amount of footwork and the amount of empty hand work that they do that doesn't involve an implement or a barbell. It's just getting people to move. So if you can use this time to spend time on your footwork, look up all the great footwork drills that are out there. I use Madison Throws Club. Shout out to Coach Mary. She's the kind of the technical model in a lot of those videos, kind of the guinea pig. And, I use them a lot. I think they have some great drills out there. And there's a lot of great throwers. There's Throws University on Instagram. They give a lot of quick breakdowns and tips and kind of fundamentals of throwing. And like, even though we are different than track and fields, we're different than hammer, disc, shot, javelin. There's fundamentals of throwing things. So find those, seek them out. But what I'm getting at is you'd be surprised how much of that stuff is empty-handed. It doesn't have to do with weights or doesn't even involve an implement. It's just learning to move. It's your footwork. It's like making it so when you move through a circle, or you can hear the 3-year-old screaming in the background, quarantine time. But like when they move through space, when they're moving, like just how natural the turning of the feet becomes, the placement of the feet becomes, like the direction of the hips becomes, like learning, like that's what I think so many people miss because they get so obsessed with moving the implement the way that they want to in the Highland Games and looking like Highland Games throwers, that they kind of don't never latch on to the fact that you need to, like your idea of when you step into a box and you move, it has to be so ingrained, like the lower half of your body, your hips, the placement of your arms has to be so ingrained that you do it completely without thinking, empty-handed. Like if I said, hey, rotate down that line, like a line drill or empty-handed line drill, that you would do it and it would be boring to you without it being a task. Just that's the natural way to move. It's like a dance step. It's just like, oh yeah, we're doing like a foxtrot. Yeah, I got it. Just being able to do that and it being so natural. Most Highland Games athletes do not get to that point. And I don't know that I ever, maybe there's certain drills and certain movements that I can get that are going to feel like habitual, that are going to feel natural when I move through space. But I don't think it's anything like a high-level track and field athlete is going to have. I mean, so spend your time doing those things. Spend this time that we have not together to make yourself natural at moving. To where if you're a rotational stone thrower, let's say, make a wheel drill just feel like something you could do while you're standing around waiting in line at the grocery store for toilet paper. Or, like your unseat drill for a glide thrower. Like get so natural with that you understand the balance point of your unseat so well that if someone told you had to do 10 of them, you'd roll your eyes and like, fine, all right, yeah, I got to do this. Instead of being like, okay, I got to focus on where this feels like. Just try to make those things habitual. You really underestimate high school and collegiate athletes that through what that's like. Think of any sport that if you played sports when you were younger, there's lots of things, there's fundamentals that you get drilled into. It's like, well, that's just how you move from now on. And this is a good time to do that, is to emerge from this, not, work on getting stronger, work on getting more explosive, but maybe work on getting a little more natural too. So that's the quickest way to get rid of the donkey kicks, the flying open, post sides, left side if you're a right-handed thrower, obviously, the yanking heads. That's the way to get rid of those, is just to move over and over and over and over and over again in the proper method through the proper drills. And then I wanted to say all of a sudden to finish that, but it's not all of a sudden. Like eventually you will find that when you put a weight and an implement in your hand, some of those things are already wired. And you don't have to do them at full speed with 28, 56, 14 pounds or 16 pounds or whatever weight implement you're using. You don't have to do it at speed with that weight in your hand. I don't know, just food for thought. That's probably what I'm going to work on a little bit. I am kind of dedicated to I want to emerge from this thing stronger. I think that's always been a major hole in my game, is my strength level. I'm pretty snappy for a 40-year-old dad. I can move pretty quick. I've always kind of had that. I can finish, but I don't really have like the motor. I don't have like the strength motor behind it all. I've never really had a talent for strength. I've talked about many times. I don't have a talent for, I'm not predisposed towards strength in any way, shape, or form. I mean, look, compared to the average person, yeah, fantastic. But that's different. In the world of Highland Games, I'm probably one of the weakest people on the field at any given moment when we're talking about barbell lifts and stuff. So, use the time to shore that up. Yes, I need to throw. Yes, that's going to happen for sure. My weights for distance are so close. My stones are broken. Hammers, I'm completely tearing down. Hammers, I'm going to completely tear down because I feel like I've sold out at getting the ball around me laterally so much that I've lost a lot of elevation and I have this weird like dip and depression at the top of my orbit. And if you watch who kind of is my technical model right now, Skylar Arneson, he's very high at the top and he uses gravity to crash down and sit against that thing. And I think that's really a key. So that's something I'm going to work on as well. But yeah, coming out stronger, I don't think is a bad goal. Just kind of use this as like an extended off season because I kind of retired in my off season and then unretired in the preseason. So I really did kind of miss that phase where you like shore up your strength. You put muscle mass on and you then use that to start moving serious weight and put some strength, put some hay in the barn. And I didn't really do that. So maybe this is kind of my opportunity to do that. So other things that I think are, I guess worth talking about, is picking your technique. This is something I deal with a lot with the stones, and there's a lot of questions that I get, and that's going to kind of dovetail into an Instagram Q&A as well. But, this idea, let's just talk about the stones. Let's talk about that. Like a lot of people come to me with the question of like, should I glide or should I spin? Like, what's it going to be? Like, what's the technique? Should I, MSA, full spin? Should I glide? Should I shuffle? All that kind of stuff. What technique should I pick? There's no easy answer. I'm sorry. There is not one easy answer to how to handle that. But the easiest way I can say it is if you have a throwing background and you are used to spinning, you're a discus thrower or a shot putist that was rotational, then obviously stick with what worked for you. If you can rotate, do that. If you were a glide thrower, stick with the glide. Stick with whatever you threw furthest doing. I say that, but if you got the experience, you can mess around. If you were a glider in college, but you always wanted to spin and your coach never let you, well, fuck him. Then you spin in the Highland Games. Do what you want to, But if you want to go for the numbers, you want to be consistent, then maybe, stick with what works. I think the best litmus test. I'll say one part of it. I'll say the first part, but then I'll make an addendum to it. You should do each technique the best you can and kind of work on like, let's say just glide versus like MSA right now, because the full spin is a real different animal. And if you don't have a track background and weren't coached in that, I would not recommend it. You're adding so many variables with stone and turf and things like that. Like it really takes an amount of precision and amount of like what I talked about, muscle memory and habit with your feet and your hips and your upper body that if you don't have it, you're going to spend a lot of time getting those. But you know what? Practice both. Look at them as you do them. Like look at video critically of yourself and see which one do I look less like an asshole doing. Because when you're early on, like you're throwing like, in the 30s or whatever, like it doesn't, 30, 20s and 30s, it doesn't really matter because you're going to get so much better once you apply yourself to one technique. Don't worry about the distances yet. Which one do you look at least partially athletic doing? Now, I will make my addendum to that to say you should ask somebody else as well because you are incapable of being impartial about your own athleticism. You're going to remember what it was like to be there. You're going to feel it along with the throw. You're going to think, well, I know I probably look funny, but I really felt like I got a good push on that one. Just have somebody else. I'll look at them too. If you want me to take a look, send them to me. Have somebody else take a look at you doing those techniques and have them tell you, hey man, you look like a real fucking drunk asshole doing this one. You look like the prototypical baby giraffe right here. Like you don't look good. Like maybe stick with the glide. And to that end, most times when I'm coaching newer athletes, I put them on the glide because there's less steps. There's less that can go wrong. The glide is still very technical. Don't get it twisted. But there's a lot less that can go wrong. And a lot of times people that come to the sport new have also been lifting weights a little bit. They're not unfamiliar with a barbell squat. So they have some strength. They may not have like coordination and explosiveness yet. But they've got some strength in their legs. So utilizing that without getting all these different technical problems in the way that come with rotation is usually the best bet. Now to scale that back even further with somebody that's brand new, I will have them work on the glide or whatever technique they're really sold out on doing, but I do a lot of work on the standing throw. I spend a lot of time teaching people the standing throw because that is the basis. Everything that you're doing, whether you're doing the MSA, you're doing the glide, or whether you're doing the full spin, you're just getting a rolling start to the power position so you can throw from there. It's throwing from the power position with momentum. That's what we're doing with any technique. That's all you're even with if you're doing like a shuffle. That's all, if you're doing a side shuffle, like, like the kind of the newbie way when you don't have a technique yet, you just kind of turn to the side and take a big shuffle step. Like that is just getting there with momentum. It's really hard to do that, by the way. Like people think that works, but you'd be surprised if you develop good standing throw technique, that you'll throw further than you will with the shuffle. So I don't like the shuffle for that reason. I get why people do it early on when they haven't really learned like the fundamentals of the stand and everything. I get it, the front, whatever you want to call it. But I understand. But if you got a good standing throw, you're not going to need to shuffle anymore. You can just be confident in your stand because you can't really get in a good power position from like the side shuffle thing. You can't wrap. You can't really get the motor going. You can't get your you can't push to the right leg, right hip, all that kind of good stuff. So a lot of time spent on the standing throw for new throwers. And I highly recommend that because that's the moneymaker. That's what you're trying to get to. You're trying to get to that position to deliver from there. So once you, again, going back to muscle memory, repetition, your body just saying like, okay, we're throwing a stone, it's got to be in this position, and that position is the power position. Then when you add everything else, at least you have that parachute to pull when you get to the front. It's like, okay, I know that I'm supposed to be in this position, so at least I get to there, and you'll probably see improvement from there. So again, to review, have some, do both techniques as you're new and learn and mess around with it. Look at it critically yourself, but have somebody else look at it critically too. Most likely you're going to want to glide. And then most likely you need a lot of work on your standing throw. So spend a lot of time on the standing throw while you work on those things too. And don't be afraid to do a standing throw in competition. It's not a fucking look cool and who can make your kilt billow out the furthest competition. It's a throwing competition. And if you throw a consistent good stone from a standing position, fucking throw one standing and get a better placement on the stone instead of just trying to look cool and getting mad that it didn't go how it did in practice. Speaking of billowing kilts, Sport Kilt. Yeah, I've said it a million times. I've worn Sport Kilt my entire career. Sport Kilt is a jam. Sport Kilt is the 100% gold standard for kilts for athletes in the Scottish Highland Games, even for pipers, for dancers, for everybody involved in the Scottish Celtic festival scene. Sport Kilt is it, man. It's great material. They look awesome. They got all the tartans you can choose from. They have accessories. They got the sporrans. They got socks. I think they got hats, man. So they got everything that you're going to need to get suited up for this. Everybody serious that I know wears a Sport Kilt, you should be doing it too. Go to sportkilt.com. Use code HEAVYLIGHT. You're going to save 10% on your next purchase. All right, I put out the call for a Q&A. I did it, guys. I'm pulling my phone up to look right now. Okay. So I just gave like an open-ended Q&A, and I'm sorry if you put one in, and I later after I'm done recording and I didn't get to it, but I really don't. I don't deeply care about what happened to you, but I feel like I have to say I'm sorry. All right, so let's try to go in order. I am Sean 035 says, how do you go from amateur to pro? I haven't been able to find anything about it online. Yeah, welcome to the Highland Games, man. Can't find anything about it online is basically like the subtitle of the Highland Games. How do you go from amateur to pro? I mean, in all fundamental ways, man, you really do just say, I'm a pro. You can declare that you're pro anytime, man. There's no card that you earn. There's no big show that you got to win. There's no qualifiers. You just say, I'm pro. Now, here's the realness. Here's the drawback. You got to have invites. You have to have invitations to pro games. So usually that involves, one, throwing far enough. There is no minimum standard. There's kind of, if you look on NASGA, the database right now, and hopefully soon look on HGO, to see like what is like the bottom, the last pro on the list. Who's the lowest ranked pro? At least that, or maybe 10 to 20% more. It's probably the best way you should be aiming to go, because you can be really well liked and you can have a great crowd following and all that kind of stuff at your local games or the ones in your region. But if you can't throw for shit, it's just not going to get the AD's attention. There is a level of purity that happens in AD's minds to where they do feel like you need to be throwing in a certain standard. But every AD has different standards, though. So don't think that just because I don't understand why I wouldn't get an invite here. I throw further than the guys that are blah blah blah. Like there could be lots of reasons. You have to, again, I've said this a lot of times in this podcast. You have to think from an AD's perspective. He's putting an entertainment product on the field. It's a sport to him, it's a sport to us, but he has to consider that he's putting an entertainment product on the field. If he's going to field a pro class and push that as like, this is my premier entertainment thing, then it needs to be full of people that are throwing fundamentally further than most or not, if not all of the other classes on the field. So throws do matter, yes. But you have to, honestly, the traditional method before social media was as big as it is, but it still has a lot to do with it, is that you kind of got to get good enough to where you're winning in the amateur A's. And then you have to kind of make a circuit a little bit. You've got to do the bigger games. It used to be you had to do Enumclaw, you need to be at Pleasanton, you need to be seen at Minnesota. I'm sure I'm missing a bunch in there, but there are certain games you need to kind of, and Loon, like you need to be there and you need to make those games and make an appearance and introduce yourself and make the big throws there and all that kind of stuff. It's not as much the case now because everybody can see online what their throws are and they can have a following online for their Highland Games exploits and their weight room stuff. So some of that can happen. But I mean, generally you just need to be at least sort of well liked, or if you're not really well liked, just throw really fucking far. But yeah, man, there's no tried and true way. It's just like if you're a commodity that an athletic director would pay to have on the field because you throw far enough and you're entertaining and you're memorable to a crowd that pays the gate to get in, then that's probably what's going to do it, man. That's really what it comes down to. So, don't go looking for a pro card. Don't expect that it's going to happen soon. Don't expect, like, if you're throwing in the Bs right now or you just cracked into the As, don't expect it's going to happen anytime soon. Usually look, the guys, as you remember, we, a few episodes back, sat with Dan Tennyson and Spencer Tyler, who both have a track and field background, and they both were no question pro. Spencer was an amateur longer than you'd expect, but Dan was like one of those guys, like no question pro. He came out throwing bombs. Like he threw in the mid 50s with his first open stone, his first game at a C class or whatever, or a B class. He threw a 115 hammer. He threw a 16-6 weight over bar. Just, all we're doing is we're kind of just patting those guys on the ass as they head their way up to the pros. The amateurs are just like a checkbox for them. They have to do an AM games to show up, but they're going to the pros. They're big and strong. They have a track and field background. It's happening. For people that are more, have to work their way up there, like as Aaron lovingly calls himself, a jobber. Some of those other guys are like, you have to put in the years and you got to really craft those numbers and an image and a reputation for yourself by doing that. Probably going on longer than that I wanted to. All right. Exercises. Tim Friedsma says exercises are people interested in trying throwing but can't meet up with others yet. Throw, man. That's all I got for you. If you don't have the implements, yeah, that's going to be a little bit tougher. But I don't know, just get to where, if you're a little strong already, stay strong. Don't get weaker. Do some Olympic lift variations. Do some jumping. Do some bounding. Do footwork. That's going to help you a lot. If you didn't notice, I talked a lot about that. Find those footwork drills for like stone or shot put throwing or for discus or for, and just get to where you can move your feet. That's basically it. Like, throw a med ball, get to where, I have some things on my YouTube channel, some med ball work for explosiveness, and there's some variations on there that'll help you kind of understand, but there's really nothing like it until you get the implements in your hand, man. There's just nothing like it. There's no way you're going to show up to a group of people that have all the implements and do the sport and throw with them the first time and not look like an asshole. And I mean, look like an asshole in the good way. It's not they're going to not like you. It's just you're not going to know what the fuck you're doing. So just be in shape and have a good attitude and maybe be able to move without hurting yourself. You're going to be fine, dude. Let's see. Aston Strength says, what does he say? Let's read the whole thing. What was the most challenging event for you to learn when you first started throwing? When I first started throwing, it was hammers. I used to have a series on YouTube called The Worst Hammer Thrower in the World because I was in the A's, but I threw like just barely A hammers. It was rough, man. Hammers were really hard for me. As I matured into my career, K-Burr got harder. I went for, I think there was a stretch I went for like 2 years without turning a caber. I'm not lying. Like it was bad. Maybe 3 years, it might have been. But yeah, hammers were really hard. Weights I could just kind of fake, oddly enough. Like I threw 30 and 60 fairly early, for somebody my size. Um, but I didn't go, I never, like, I didn't just like develop into bombs, but like I developed them into bombs, but like I got to them pretty quick after I started throwing in the A's and got exposed to the coaching. But nowadays, those are really challenging because I'm trying to like up the ante a little bit more and throw even further than ever. Then you really have to break those. Those become the most technical. For most people, those are the really, really hardest. And right now, that's for me the biggest challenge is the weights for distance because I believe that they're the most technical event that we do and they're the most unique. You could say they're sort of like discus, but they're real fucking heavy compared to a discus. But yeah, when I first started, man, it was hammers, plain and simple, because I just never done anything like it. My background as a fencer, my background as a baseball player, like there was nothing that prepared me physically for the idea that, hey, you're going to get a 4 foot fucking hammer that weighs 16 or 22 pounds, sling it around your body and throw it behind you. Nothing prepared me for that. And it really took me a long time to even like understand what was going on other than just trying to imitate other people that I had seen doing it. John asked, excluding X throwers, what kind of athlete do you think... I don't have these on the right thing, so I gotta look. Hold on. I'm bad at the internet. So old right now. Excluding X throwers, what kind of athlete do you think would have the easiest time learning the Highland Games? That is a cool question, man. Yeah, X throwers, obviously that's a cheat code. I do believe out of X throwers, for anybody curious, that I've seen hammer throwers make the best transition. I think because of the intricacy of their footwork and the violence that they have to develop and how long they spend under tension and under like focus and a throw. Something, I don't know. I'm not smart enough to be able to tell you. That's just all theory. But I've noticed that wire hammer throwers tend to transition really well for what that's worth. What kind of athlete do you think would have the easiest time learning the games? Learning the Highland Games? That's a really good question. Because we haven't seen a lot of other kinds. I think power lifters struggle quite a bit. That's one that we tend to have a lot of people come from if they don't have any other background. They can be very good at sheaf. They can be good at wob. They can be good at caber, but they struggle in the ones where they got to move their feet. I've talked before about there are two types of throwers in my mind. There are throwers that are good when they can move their feet, and there are throwers that are good when they don't have to. I fall in the former. I've got plenty of friends that were very good power lifters that fall into the latter. So strongmen can transition pretty well, because strongman's a little bit more dynamic and they're used to odd implements, and I think their learning method is a little bit better because they're always faced with odd implements and they kind of have to do a calculus around like, okay, I've got to optimize how I get this thing moving. Like that's a big part of strongman is not just like obviously being super strong helps, but the athleticism and the mental capacity to figure out, hey, what's my way around this implement? How do I, get the best grip on it? How do I move it? How do I accelerate it? How do I get it up? All that kind of good stuff. So I do believe some strongmen have that capacity and it translates pretty darn well. I'm trying to think if there's anybody, like we don't have a lot of football players. Andy Vinson was a great example. I think he transitioned quite well from pro football. TJ Watkins, another guy, is a pro football player. I think football players that get to a certain high level, maybe professional or even like college level, I think they already possess a base athleticism that comes, one, from probably the physical gifts that come along with getting them to the level, but two, with the amount of work that they've gotten into movement, quality of movement, and moving through space, and that they're not dummies from the weight room. So it's hard not to be biased towards football. It's really not. It's hard to not bias towards that. I'd like to say baseball, but the fundamental raw strength that's required for the Highland Games is not a high emphasis in baseball training. It's more important to be explosive and more important to be flexible and durable, I would say, and have high levels, the ability to acquire skill and great hand-eye coordination. Like those things are throwing accuracy, all those sort of things. But yeah, just that motor, that strength motor is just not there for baseball players. So yeah, I guess I would have to say football, man. But the thing is, I'm only going off of like the stuff that I've seen. I could speculate, I guess, like what kind of athlete would do really, really well. It's really hard not to fall back to throwing athletes, though. Let's see. Who else moves really well? Yeah, see, you can talk about movement, but it takes a certain level of strength and power. Like soccer players move really, really well, but there's not anybody, not a lot of soccer players are, squatting 405 plus. They're not, they're not they're not hang cleaning 315 or more. Like, it's just not the motor and the power is not there for the transition. I'm ashamed, especially in this era of all the crazy sports that we get to see, like that I can't think of anybody better to do this with. Maybe curling guys. I think curling guys would have the best attitude going into it. I think they would fit the culture. If you ever watch curling, those dudes and girls would fit the culture of Highland Games way better than almost any sport. I think they would have it. Darts players have the drinking part down. They definitely can. They can drink and drink at a high level. They definitely got that going for them. Nobody's gonna like this, but CrossFit athletes. I think CrossFit athletes could probably transition pretty well. But the thing is, not at the high levels because none of them are very big. There's no 300-pound CrossFitters. There's no, ladies that are 160 pounds plus, I think, for the most part. So, you'd have a lot of great lightweight Highland gamers. You could probably cultivate a lightweight world champion out of the CrossFit Games right now. I mean, so I think they would transition really well. But they're strong. They are, and you can argue that with me all the fuck you want to. But watch the games and tell me if you can do all that shit. Tell me for sure that you can lift all the stuff that the top CrossFitters in the world can. Tell me for sure. But yeah, they're strong and they can move. They're conditioned. I mean, in general, it may not be precise, technical movement all the time, with, footwork and everything, and they're explosive. There's a lot of hip extension. CrossFit is all about the fucking hip extension, quarter extremity. So I think they could throw, but there's just not a sport for large people. So you got to go back to football, man, because that same training modality exists in football and has forever, but you got people with size, man. You got linemen. You got Andy Vincent is what you fucking got. Like, the answer's already there. There it is. There's the best possible answer outside of a non-thrower. Did anything happen, speaking of throwing, because that's all we're talking about? I'm sure a lot of people have put in their scores or whatever. Jeremy Coulthard put in his own scores. Oh, he put me in 5th place, even though there's only 3 people. That's cute. You're so cute, Jeremy. You're a goddamn cutie pie. Let's see. Who else? Hazmat Heavy Games. That's kind of clever. You messed up all your capitalization, though. Have some self-respect and capitalize properly when you're putting in a games. Come on. Let's see. Amateur A, there's one guy, Alex Griffith. Way to go, Alex. Getting the win in a class of 1. Lightweight, Levi Cisco. Win in a class of 1. Ooh, master's class is fucking stacked. Zach Riley. Hey, Zach. Hey, man. I miss you. Zach Riley, 1st place. What did you throw, Zach? 79-foot lightweight. Threw the heavyweight for distance, the 42, 56 feet. Hey, throw pro, Zach. So Doug Ballard taking 2nd. Timothy Bliven taking 3rd. Masters 40 to 49. Under 200. Glenn Cisco. Way to go. Representing the little guys. And Alex Ballard in the women putting up numbers. I'm not going to say there's any monster numbers here. Not even. Zach didn't really put up anything. Did Zach put anything big? 7. He's throwing the 42, so it's going to look huge. 46 feet open stone. All pretty respectable stuff there. Pretty good. But good on you guys for getting out and throwing. It was less than 10 of you. So it was like less than 5 or 6 of you. So good job. But I think everybody's going to be throwing alone for the time being. So the pandemic games, the deadline closed last night. So we have all the entries that we're going to have. And people look, you can just record your fucking throws and put them out there. That's what we're doing. We're going totally loose with this thing. We're going totally easy mode. We're not telling you got to gather. There's no, put a kilt on. That would make me feel good. just because I know you, in a way, you'd be thumbing your nose at me by practicing in your kilt. So if that makes you happy, I want you to do that. I assume Jeremy Coulthard did. I assume that he went out there in his kilt by himself and did it. And I would be ashamed. I would be very upset with him if he didn't, because that is, again, a good way to thumb your nose at me. And if there's no I can't think of any better motivation than to give a big fuck you to the guy doing the Heavy Light podcast. All right, I'll talk to you guys soon. I love you all deeply. Heavy Light is brought to you by Throw Bros. Throw Bros is the only online store for Highland Games athletes. Gear up, get throwing. Use code HEAVYLIGHT, all one word. You're going to save 10% at throwbros.com.